Now, some of you might ask yourself, why do we have the credit sales for February, March, April, if our budget period is only April, May, and June? Why don't we concentrate only on April, May, and June? And which is the mistake that most of you make in an exam. Remember, the reason why we have February and March is that we sell goods during the month that falls out of the budget period, but the money might be collected during the budget period. We have sold the goods during the month that falls outside the budget period, but the money is collected during or within the budget period. That is why it is important to also include the months that falls out of the budget period in terms of credit sales, right? For an example, let's start with February. Same month as February is, now let's come here. How debtors, how we collect. Let's come to how we collect. Debtors are expected to pay as follows: 40% in the same month, 50% after 1 month, and 8% after 2 months. Right. When you take the credit sales for February, same month would be February, after 1 month would be March, after 2 months will be April. That is why, but this amount has already been calculated for you. Therefore, this is the 8%. This is the 8% that was collected in April on the credit sales of February. The same will apply for March. 40% of goods were sold on credit in March. Okay? Same month as March is March, where we are going to collect 40%. But because March falls out of the budget period, we do not record that money in our cash budget. After 1 month, we are going to collect 50%, right? That is why you see 1 month after March is April. Therefore, we collected 50%. You will see that 20,000 is 50% of 40,000. And 2 months after March is in May. Therefore, we are going to collect 80%. 8%, I meant to say. I'm sorry. Right. Now we come. Fortunately, they have done these calculations for you. Okay? Now we come to April. In April, the credit sales have already been calculated for you. 48,000. Same month as April is April, where we are going to collect. Same month as April is April, where we are going to collect 40%. After 1 month is May, we are going to collect 50%. And after 2 months is June, where we are going to collect 8%. For the goods sold when? In April. You will see that when you take 48,000 and multiply by 40%, it will give you 18,240. When you take 48,000 multiply by 50%, it will give you 24,000. Now, what we need to do is to calculate the amount of the goods sold in April that will be collected in June. Remember, June is 2 months after April, where we are going to collect 8%. Now you simply say 48,000 multiplied by 8% gives us 3,840. 3,840. 840. Now, we come to the credit sales of May. If goods were sold in May, same month as May will be May, which means the 40% will be collected in May. In May, we are going to collect 40%. After 1 month, it will be in June, we are going to collect 50%. 2 months after June would be July, where we are going to collect 8%. But July falls out of our budget period. Therefore, you don't need to make that calculation. Now, in May, we are going to collect 40% of 64,000. Now we say, you make your calculation, you say 64,000 multiply by 40%, that gives you 25,600. Then in June, you are going to collect 50% of 64,000. Then you take your calculator once more. You say 64,000 multiply by 50%. That gives you 32,000. You don't even need a calculator to make that calculation. 50% of 64,000. Like I said, we don't need to calculate the 8% because it is in July and our budget period ends at 30 June. Now, the goods that were sold on credit for June is 72,000. Because they were sold in June, we would obviously not collect anything in April, because by then those goods were not sold. Okay? They were sold in June, therefore we could not collect anything in April, because by then the goods were not yet sold. The same will apply in May. Because these goods were sold only in June, we will not collect anything for those goods in May because they had not yet been sold at that stage. Therefore, the goods were sold in June. Same month as June is June. It says to here that 40% is collected in the same month of sale. Therefore, in the same month of sale for June will be June. Therefore, 40% will be collected in June. 50% will be collected in July. And 8% will be collected in August. But these 2 months, July and August, falls out of our budget period. Therefore, we do not need to make those calculations. Now we calculate the 40% of 72,000. 72,000 multiply by 40%, it gives us 28,800. Now you have done all your calculation. What you simply need to do is to get the totals of your columns. Now in your columns, you add the amounts. Ne? You add the amounts. We have 3,200. We add 24,000. And then we add 25,600. And that gives us 52,800. Now, I think we have made a mistake somewhere. We have not taken all the information into account. We have not taken all the information into account. Remember, in the same month of sale, they say we collect 40% and receive 5% settlement discount. We have ignored that information, which is the mistake that most of you normally make. Unfortunately, I've also made the same mistake as you normally do. Therefore, you should avoid making that mistake, right? That will bring us here to May, where the 40% is. You have 40% minus 5%. Okay? You have 40% minus 5%. Right, that amount is wrong, but we are still going to use that amount. You are going to say, you first calculate the 40%, and then you subtract the 5%, which means you'll have your, you'll say 64,000, you'll say 64,000 multiplied by 40% is equals to 25,600, right? 25,600. From this 25,600, then you minus the 5%. You know, if you minus 5%, you simply multiply by 95 and divide by 100. That will give you 24,320. Right. The same will apply to this 40%. We have already calculated the 40% of 72,000. Now what you only need to do is to subtract the 5% from that amount. Then we say 72,000 multiplied by 40%, it gives us 28,800. Then you multiply by 95, divide by 100 in order to subtract 5%. Then it will give you 27,360. Now, you first calculate the 40,000, you get the amount, the 40%. You first calculated the 40%, you get the amount, and only thereafter do you subtract the 5%. I think I've done it quite well here, so that you can see that you first calculate the 40%, and only thereafter do you subtract the 5%. You do not say 40% minus 5% is equals to 35%, and then use 35%. That will be wrong. You first calculate 40%, then you subtract 5% of the 40%. I think you do never make the mistake of saying 40 minus 5, 35%, and then use that 35%. That will be very wrong. Right. Then we can go back to adding the totals of the different columns. Now, when you add the columns, you must also include the amounts that were already calculated for you. In any activity, in any question, always include the amounts that were already calculated for you. For an example, in April, they have already calculated and they have a total for the column. In May, you must start with the 3,200 plus 24,000 plus 24,320. That gives us 51,520. In June, we have 3,840 plus 32,000 plus 27,360. That gives us 63,200 rands. Therefore, we expect to collect 34,440 in April from debtors. We expect to collect 51,520 in May. We expect to collect 63,200 in May. All these three amounts would go to our cash budget. These are the amounts that will go to our cash budget as receipts from debtors. These are the amounts that will go to our cash budget as receipts from debtors.